Go down through here, it's not just, when you build a classroom, then you have to have auxiliary spaces to support that. You may have to have additional restrooms to do that. So you see down here, they say, well, you're not gonna need any more restrooms, but you do need a circulation area. 3 classrooms, you're gonna have a hallway in there. So they're saying, we're gonna give you 900 square feet of circulation space at a cost of $80, so an additional $72,000 for that. And then they add on to that architectural fees and contingencies that they participate in also. So when time comes, if that's something you decide to do as a staff, that's something the state's going to participate in. Now, going back to your entitlement sheet though, you have to have money on your entitlement sheet in order to get money from the state, and you do. Any questions on that? Okay. So you'll see that you probably see we'll go to the high school. You see all zeros here. There has been some talk about adding some classrooms at a local level in the past, so those are located in there. But you know, that's just some thoughts that we had sometime along the way and put it as a local need. So that's not chance of that being done anytime soon is not great, because it's all totally local funded a project. But you know, you never know. You can see at the go back to the primary school, and you'll see all zeros. You have no construction needs at the primary school at this time. Okay, let's go to the renovation needs. Remember I said renovation needs were cosmetic in nature? In each one of your buildings, you have 3 buildings located at the primary school now. You probably don't recognize, if you didn't think about it, you said, no, there's only 1 building up there. But the original building was built in 1976. I don't know what that, no, that's the
elementary school.
That's the old building. That 2020, I think we recognize that that's what you're now using as a technology area. So you see there's no classrooms there. So the original building was built in 1984, and then we added that 10 classrooms in 2016. Those are considered 2 different buildings. 1 facility, 2 different buildings. And you can see that in the 1984 building, that's the occupied date and the controlling date. Now the controlling date starts. It will be different often than the occupied date. You can only apply for and get renovation money from the state if the school building is 20 years old or older, or if it's been 20 years since the state has put any money into the building. So this number might be 1984, but this one might be 2004. Because they're saying the control date is 2004. We put money into the building somewhere between 1984 and 2004, so it's not eligible again for another 20 years. So they'll change the control date to show when that 20 years started. But there's never been any state money put in this building past the actual construction of it in 1984. So you'll see here you've got 35 earned units. So the architect estimates that $1.5 million of cost to renovate it, bring it up to the standard that you would probably want, but the state's only going to participate at $490,000. Remember I said $14,000 per earned IU? If you take $14,000 and multiply it by 35, that equals $490,000. Okay, so the state will participate at $490,000 plus architect's fees and contingencies. You can see those have been listed. So you could get about $592,900 to do a renovation at the 2010 building at the primary school, if you chose to do that. Nothing in your facility plan is required that you do, not ever. So unless there's only one way that there becomes a requirement. If you decide to close a building down and you're not going to use the building anymore, let's say you went over to your middle school and said, we're not using middle school anymore. Well, let me say ahead of time they wouldn't let you do that. But if it was a really old building and you decided you were not ever going to use it, you didn't want to use it anymore, you could actually close that building, and that is when you do that, that's a final statement. You're saying, we're not ever gonna go back to it, we can't ever go back to it, it's cost too much money to bring it up to standard, so we're gonna close it. We might not tear it down, but we might use it for something else. For example, these buildings right here, Mountain Ed is, what used to be housed up there, where the Mountain Ed is?
That was high school at one time.
That was the high school? Okay, the high school used to be over there where Mountain Ed is. But you moved out of it into the new high school, but you didn't tear it down, you're using it for an unrecognized group of students. So you might not ever tear a building down, you might just want to reuse it. Franklin County is a good example. They had an old middle school that was really old. They decided not to use it anymore. They closed it and built a new middle school. And they renovated, they went in with local funds and renovated that old building, and they're now using it for a central office. They've got a really nice central office, but it's an old building. But they put in new carpet and repainted and took out some walls and this sort of thing, made some offices. Really
If
nice.
a school neglects their building policy, or they should carry on by the state, and they get behind in what they're supposed to be providing, how does the state step in? What do they do?
If you get behind what the state says and you're drastically behind, they will send in their consultant and their staff and start putting pressure on you to get it up to snuff, so to speak. I've not seen that happen many times. There is a few old buildings in South Georgia that we did visit and make some really high recommendations to the school system that they do some replacement, but that's not usual.
Our elementary school is our oldest building, isn't it? Can we see those numbers?
Well, actually, the oldest building is just at Woody Gap.
Well, yeah, but,
It's, gosh, I think it was a 1940s building over there.
Said in the 1940s.
So, this is the elementary school. You've got 3 buildings listed. You got a 2010 building that was built in 1970. I think that's the old high school building up on the hill. 21 classrooms. You have a estimated cost by the architect of $876,000. State eligible is only $224,000 for renovations for that building. So it is your oldest. The 2020 building, this is just code numbers that the state gives it, between 2010, 2011, and 2020. Those are code numbers. They don't mean anything. They're just the way they code their building. So that 2010 building is your oldest building. You've got a 2011 building that was built in '98 that has it has 5 classrooms in it. Science wing. Okay. And then you got the older part of the rest of it was built in '95. Now, for you and me, 1970 don't seem to be too old. That's the year I graduated from high school. And 98, 95 don't seem really old at all. But you realize a 1995 building is what? 23 years old. Is eligible for renovation. This one has not had any state money put in it for renovation in the lifetime of the building. Everything has been done in that building has been a locally funded project.
I know that building has got some issues that we need to address.
You may want to speak, Doug, of the modernization.
Yes, there is the modernization plan that the state has just introduced the last couple of years.
Sorry, I forgot that part.
You can go in and completely gut the building and redo everything. And they will give you, instead of the $14,000 per earned IU, they'll give you $80 a square foot. I think it is. I'm pretty sure it's $80. So it's more money, but there's also stipulations that goes with it, and a lot more certification of needs and that sort of thing. But here's something that I will speak about. I was a part of a renovation project in a school system that I worked in, we took an old building and completely gutted it and really did a modernization of it. We spent about $2.5–3 million on that building for renovation. Man, when we opened school that fall, it was a beautiful building. We came in, all new flooring, all new ceilings, all new paint. We even took out some walls and did some restructuring in it. But we were in it about 2 weeks and we started having problems. Not because of the new stuff, because the old stuff and new stuff didn't match. And the plumbing was giving us problems, electrical was giving us problems still. The fire alarms, everything was still old. But it looked good. That was in Dawson County. Since then, they tore down the building and rebuilt it.
You're probably better off if you gotta spend a lot, just tear it down and start over.
You're right. You're right.
Cause it costs so much to tear it down.
Cost of tearing down a building is not great. $5 or $6 a square foot to demolish it.
Okay.
But I mean, if you're gonna, you basically tear it down to modernize it, basically, you just leave the hole there, and that takes a lot more time.
Right.
And money.
Do we have electrical issues at the elementary because of the age of the building?
We have done some work, matter of fact, here very recently, to upgrade some panels that, they're just old, you know. But, even through kind of the technology side of the equation, that building's held up better than some when it comes to the electrical side of it, believe it or not.
There are so many factors to consider when you take a building like your 2010 building, the old high school up there, that you have to consider the structural soundness of it. And to do a modernization, they send out an architect to judge the soundness of the building too. Structural soundness, and then we go back to that word, is it adequate? Is that building serving kids in a way that you want them to be served? So many factors to consider, as well as the infrastructure, the wiring, the plumbing, the water system, the sewage system. I assume you're on sewage. There's so many things to consider when you start to talk about doing a renovation project. You want to look at any renovation project that you embark on. You really want to study it closely, carefully, and get some really good advice from consultants and from architects and engineers and so on to see whether it's worth renovating or not. And a lot of buildings are. A lot of buildings are really in good shape. They just need some little care. Not regular care like custodial care, that's what I'm doing. Some real fix up type stuff.
Pull up the Woody Gap ones if we look at all the rest of them. Pull up the Woody Gap video.
1941, 1955, 1988. Then you got that 2010 building. 2010 building's the gym
The vocational building.
and vocation.
Or do that, yeah.
That's here's a big red line right here. Facility is below base size.
Yes,
What?
that's right.
It's below the base size of 500 FTE. That usually means that you're not going to get any state funding for that facility at all. But since this is a special case, you have, at least I used to get what was called a sparsity grant.
We still get it.
I don't know how much money that is.
The rock on that building was quarried where my business is.
Really? And that is why if you ever decided to do away with that building, you're gonna have to fight a battle with the people in Session. And one of them is a good friend of mine. She was a Ledford, her name is Shirley Davis, and she loves that building, and she would never want to see anything done with it. But that's renovation needs, and that's cosmetic stuff, windows, doors, floors, ceilings, paint, so on like that. Modification needs, you can see it that you've got you've got a replacement for HVAC, what do you get? That already shows in your plan as a need. And that's the amount of money that's assigned to it. State participated 66,000. How many units you got over there? 66,000 by two of them? One.
Maybe.
Replace roof.
But the modification needs are in every school, and we try to look hard at those, make sure that you got everything in there. Got HVAC still in at the high school, but look at the state eligible cost. You got an idea why?
Age of the building.
No? Because you got an application in place right now that's already been funded. You go out here to this date, this column, and it tells you that it's funded in 15. So you're gonna do that project this coming summer, and it's already been paid for by the state. So the control date for HVAC for that building is gonna be 2015. So for HVAC, you can replace it in 10 years.
We're actually gaining 2 years.
You're actually gaining 2 years because you did the application in 15.
So when it's 8 years old, we can replace it?
If needed.
If needed.
And then there's some exceptions, and, which is unusual for exceptions to show up in a plan at this point in the year, but they both have to do with Woody Gap. The state don't know what to do with that. Then you got a total needs section, and it summarizes what you've already seen. So after July 1 of this year, just about anything in this plan can be changed other than the FTE. So you can go in and start your planning process for the next, for 2021, with using this plan. So the good thing about this is it makes it accessible to your staff, and you can use it as a tool rather than just something to sit on the side. You look at these numbers, these little things up here on the top, inventory, LFP report. This is where you can print it. Inventory actually shows you the buildings, the spaces that are listed in your buildings, a listing of each space and what it's used, not what it's used for, but what it is. There's some documents that they can add in here occasionally. Your entitlement sheets here, and then the guidelines are there. That shows you all the guidelines that the state has associated with facility planning. I'm not going to go to it, but it's all there. And you can go read it anytime. And you don't have to get on this website, this plan, to be able to go to those guidelines. You can go to the BOE website, and you can find those in there for anybody in here at any time. So that's your facility plan. As you can see, your facility plan is loaded up with renovation and modification needs. You don't have, the only construction need you have in the plan is those 3 classrooms. I think I'd have to go back and look for sure, but those 3 science classrooms at the middle school. Now, you can maximize your entitlement. You want to maximize your entitlement every year by making sure all of your needs that are recognized are in your plan. Okay? Can you switch us back to our cost? They're going up. I can tell you that. Cost of concrete. Interesting enough that China's getting all their concrete these days. So the cost of concrete for us is going up. Cost for new construction of a school now is running about $125 per foot.
I was gonna ask you, they're allowing 80, but that's not realistic.
125, and for a high school, it'd probably be more like 135. So that's something to think about. Reliability planning, if you're talking about the reliability of planning itself, reliability, since it's going online like this, I think the reliability is really good. It keeps us up to date, it keeps us in the know of everything we need in that plant. And Chris and Keith are, like I said before, are the best at looking at that plan and seeing what's coming down the road and what we need to do. You couldn't ask them to do any better. Oversight. You're the oversight. You're making sure that these folks are keeping up to date. And I said earlier that I wouldn't want to be a superintendent. I wouldn't want to be a board of education person either. You guys, I take my hats off to you. People run the Board of Education because they have some idea of what they want to get done. They have an agenda, very often. But once you get in that seat, it becomes a big picture that you probably didn't recognize that was going to be there when you first took on this job. There's a big picture out there that everybody else doesn't see, that you have to see, and the costs, the needs, not just of facilities, but everything else, personnel, all that stuff. We were talking just the other day that people think that you have all this money to spend. You only got about 15% or less of your total budget is actually discretionary money. That's the only amount of money that you can say, well, let's put some money here, or let's put some money there. And if you're gonna do that, you've gotta know for sure that what you're doing is reliable and fits your system and is what the system needs. So you're the oversight, and you know what's going on. You got a big picture. I remember very well, Dr. Raffi, you'll remember this too probably. When I became an assistant principal, I walked into my office one day after a hard day night, and I sat down and closed my door and I said, what have I got myself into? And 5 years later, when I became a principal, I did the same thing. Holy cow, why did I want to do this? And I'm sure he's had those days too, because I had him as an assistant superintendent. It's a tough job. Your job's a tough job. You have all these folks right here that are watching you every move you make, and they have their own ideas of what they want to do and what they want you to spend money on and what they don't want you to spend money on. So you got a tough job, folks, and it's a serious job. And I applaud you for being there, and wish you the best of luck, because it's tough. It's tough. And as you look down the road at what you need in this school system facility-wise, it's going to be tougher, because there are a lot of folks out there who's going to say, I cannot believe you were wanting to build this or that or the other. How can you say you need that? But you know the big plan, and so do these folks. Just go over your buildings a little bit. This is Woody Gap. Last reported FTE was 68. I remember putting it well over 100 when I was back over. You have 5 buildings there, and you can see that the years they were built, and there's